Yeah, now stand and cheer for your Talking Basketball podcast. Welcome back to this episode. This is the second part of a doubleheader. If you haven't heard the first, go back and listen to it. If you can't be bothered, that's all right. Just keep listening to this one, and hopefully you enjoy it. And don't forget, like and subscribe. I hate it when people say that.
NBA is brutal, and it is brutal to the opposite end, where you think,
should they be cutting it back?
well, the level at which they are, these people are game ready versus are they technically ready? And that's one of the things that they have against European players coming over, that they say they're great.
Yeah. But can they do 82 games?
They can't do 80. They struggle with the 82 games because it hammers them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that is, it's a whole game match fitness thing. Was it John Stockton? He missed 22 games in his entire career.
Absolutely nuts.
I mean, that's not in a workhorse, is it? Like, they've shot workhorses who've done double.
What do you call it? Is it AC Green, who played for the Lakers, who did something ridiculous? Don't quote me on this. I'm sure he played 6 seasons without missing a single game. It was something nuts like that. I think his nickname was Iron Man. But no, it was, some of those guys are absolutely crazy.
Wow, I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to find that.
I have to Google that. But yeah, he was. He during his, I think it was I'm sure the longest period was 6 seasons, but that's unmanageable. And he wasn't he was a role player, but he was someone who was playing every game. It wasn't like someone who's just coming in for 5 or 6 minutes. He was playing 25, 30 minutes, night in, night out.
Yeah. I mean, that's just insane, isn't it? And you think, when they talk about these sort of players, that's the big, you can't talk about longevity about LeBron these days.
No.
And whether you love him or hate him, you can't but respect that he's put the figures up and he's put the time in. He's been a baby a couple of times and has little tantrums, but he's got to that point where maybe you can earn that right to say, if I'm coming to your team, I demand this. It's reasonable. What he brings to what he brings to the clout, you can have that sort of demand. And media do spin stuff. We're all very aware of the world that stuff lives in. But you would say with LeBron more than anything else, it's that longevity. Yeah. When you see those pictures of him, like this is in season 1, this is season 21, you think, he's not quite as high as he was, and his arm's not quite as back as it was, but
still ridiculous to see him doing those tomahawk dunks at season 21.
Yeah, it's just and it's the way in which he's I think becoming a not caretaker in the game, so to speak, but he's very much looking at how do we keep the game being.
Yeah, it's more than just basketball.
Yeah, how do we keep it going?
Yeah.
How do we encourage people? Like, that clip going around where he gets the ball from D'Angelo.
Oh, yeah, and he's disgusted and gives it straight back.
Dude, own that. Take it.
Thing.
Yeah. And when you see that, and when he's doing he's doing the podcast now with JJ, and they're just talking basketball nerdiness, and
that pickled my brain.
Yeah,
like the way that they were talking about like play by play, and like I'm sure you must have seen it. There was an interviewer. This is going back a few years, where LeBron was questioned on why he did something in the closing minutes of a game.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of those cases where the reporter seemed to be trying to have a dig, as in he wasn't really concentrating, he didn't really know what was going on. And then he literally lists play by play the last 5 minutes of the game, but doesn't miss a step.
No.
It's absolutely ridiculous how well he understands basketball.
Yeah. Their job is to, when you see the Formula One guys, and they put in a slight tangent, but bear with me. They get the steering wheel and they say, okay, you put your foot down, drive the car fast, tap a brake occasionally. No, you've got someone in your ear saying, do this, go to that menu, press this button, do that, take this brake server off, move that forward, adjust the throttle response, change that back, tell us what you're feeling with this, move that on there.
How's that changed?
This person's changed position. You've got all of that information coming at the same time.
All of that
while you're driving 200 miles an hour. Yeah. And you got people coming behind you and stuff like that. I mean, I get annoyed when you're waiting to put the card in to pay at the toll booth and the things like, oh, I'm trying to put my card in. Just go pay at the machine, mate. Just go do, that's a driving trauma for me. So I don't know how they're doing it with stuff like this.
It's nuts.
The way that they have to, I won't say detach the brain, but it has to operate on a different level.
Yeah.
Because they're playing the game, and at the same time, he's almost having to record what he's doing.
So that it's almost like the body is in autopilot and doing what it knows it needs to do,
but learning.
True.
That's the thing. And that's why with the F1 guys, one of the things it's very in that similar dynamics, because they're constantly having to adapt to what's going on. They have to feed that back into their brain and have almost a feedback loop to go, oh, hang on a minute, he's dropping his left. He's doing this. This guy keeps coming up and taking a pivot and looking for the center here. This guy's always doing it if he's doing that. And they're recognizing those patterns.
Yeah.
And then adapting. Oh, hang on. Now they've changed. Now he's not coming forward.
And I think that is the thing. It's the difference between people that are good at sport and people that are elite at sport.
Yeah.
Being able to identify those patterns, those changes, but also knowing what to do in response to them. But like playing a game of chess, they're not thinking about just the next play. They're thinking about, well, if that play then breaks down, it then leads into the next, like the one after that. So they're always like 2 plays ahead of where your average Joe's thinking.
I do think it's interesting that he's doing the podcast with JJ Redick, because JJ's an interesting character and has definitely a lot to say.
A different type of basketball player as well. Don't get me wrong, amazingly high basketball IQ, but not an athletic player. And I would say a lot more opinionated than LeBron as well. LeBron plays his cards quite close to his chest most of the time, whereas JJ will say what he thinks.
Was it Charles Barkley, I think, who said about LeBron, he's like, what amazes me is he's gone this long a career and he's always been squeaky clean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
he said a few outlandish things that annoyed a few Chinese investors a few years back, and but other than that, I mean, that was crazy times in the world anye. So it is what it is.
It was a different time.
But he is pretty
no scandal.
No, pretty squeaky clean, and more to the point, he's been a good representative. Whether people like him or not.
No.
If you probably met him, he'd be a nice person.
He does seem likable, personable.
When people talk about GOATs and all that sort of stuff and things, as fun as it is, in reality, if you met Michael Jordan, he wouldn't pass anyone's time of day.
No.
He wouldn't say hello to us, or that's not, unless there was some particular hook, probably wouldn't do that. So
it's completely different characters.
Completely different characters. Same as everyone loves Kobe, and you can't respect it on that. But he'd have been a nightmare to live with, a nightmare to know as a player. You wouldn't want to be on
his team.
You wouldn't want to be on his team. No, he'd have been an absolute nightmare.
Unless you have that same work ethic,
which, where you weren't him, so that you wouldn't have. That's it.
True. Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter if you had his work. He'd have an even higher one than that. So it just. Those players they're cut differently, and that's the thing with LeBron, isn't it? He's cut differently. But he has that athleticism which JJ doesn't.
No, it's
the free ability to be 6'9" and dunk on someone just because he could.
And but then that part of me finds that even more amazing that he has got that basketball IQ, because don't get me wrong, JJ Redick, an amazing basketball player, amazing shooter, amazing mover.
Well, he was the guy in college, wasn't he? He was like the man.
Oh yeah. But which
LeBron never went to college.
That's true.
And he has
didn't have that time to build up.
He never had that. And JJ had that. I think I can't remember what it was, but it's not record breaking. But his career in college, everyone was like, "No, he's the guy. He is the man."
But then he was almost forced to have a good basketball IQ if he wanted to play basketball, because he didn't have the athleticism.
Exactly.
Whereas LeBron had the athleticism at a very young age, had the size at a young age, came into the NBA young, so started playing in those sets and those setups really, really young. Was he 18 when he joined the NBA?
Yeah.
So he's managed to, again, I say managed to build. I don't know whether it's just something he's got. He just sees it like almost in what's the film? I can't think of the name of the film now. Almost like a Rain Man type.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a part of it with him, particularly where if you imagine he's been on the Cavaliers, it's a bit like what we've been talking about with some of the lower teams in the BBL. If you've got a team around you that aren't very good, then you're going to be looking for ways and strategies and trying to learn as much as you can from your opponents.
True, yeah.
And because not that you can't rely on your team, but you go, we can only go as fast as our slowest player. And if we haven't got much depth, and I have to be the person who brings the depth. I have to be the person. So that's why he's always
to fill
played
those different roles.
To fill those different roles. And then he's liked playing with people who are role players. So people like the Kyries, people like the Kevin Loves and stuff like that. Because he knows, I know where you're going to go.
I don't know where you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that the ball gets to you when you're
so
open.
I can leave that to you.
Yep.
And I will then, and they're masters in it's Kyrie, ball handling. I know what he's going to do. I know where he's going to do it. I know he's safe with it. So he will then learn from watching what he does, going, if I give him the ball there, what's he going to do with it? And then he just memorizes that.
Yeah.
And then he's just stitching all these bits together. And if you've been there doing that for 21 years, you've got a big Rolodex.
Oh, there was a nuts. I'll have to find the clip and send it to you of someone talking about LeBron picking them up. So this is an opponent. Mid-play, so their point guard are called the play. Mid-play, LeBron says to the guy that he's marking, you're in the wrong spot, you're supposed to be there. So not only does he know your play, but knows that you're out of position and tells you where you should be in your play to then go and defend you in that play. So it's like he doesn't only know his own playbook that well, he knows the opponent's playbook so well that he can, when they make mistakes, he can correct them on it.
Some would argue that's his job.
Yeah, when you're the leader of a team, absolutely.
Certainly if you're the leader of the team, that's your job. But if you are at the top of your game at the point where you are,
league, I guess,
and the face of that league, you have to learn that stuff. I mean, look, got to give a shout out and one of these to Rondo.
Yes.
He gets a short one though because he's all right, but he's not great. But he's handed the gloves in, tied up his shoes. He's done now, hasn't he? 2 championships, 4 All-Stars, something like that.
Another one with massive basketball IQ.
Yeah, I always struggled with him as a player. I think he had these moments. You thought, you could do something great, but I found it difficult to separate the person from the.
I've heard some pretty nasty stories about him as a person.
His personality was came across challenging, difficult to separate the art from the artist, should we say?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's I think 4 players now. The stat was 4 players that are still playing from 2006 or before that entered the league.
That's crazy.
So like LeBron, Chris Paul, and I can't remember who else it was. Not DeAndre, someone else. But just look at it. It wasn't Boogie, it was someone else. But I was thinking, there's that's it.
Yeah.
4 players.
One of the circling back onto LeBron, I don't know if you've seen any of the clips or memes that people have made where they show NBA 2K the year that he started in the NBA compared to now, and the difference of quality. You got those boxy Lara Croft looking like icons compared to what looks like a real photograph. It's absolutely nuts. Or the Homer Simpson of watching LeBron's first game and watching LeBron now on the old black and white TV as a little boy, and then the bald old man.
I mean, that's not good.
Just shows the longevity of that career.
Yeah, he's done all right, hasn't he? He's done all right for himself. I mean, I gave you a stat earlier actually. That was it's shameful in a way, but it is quite funny. And it was looking at when people have their careers, how much some people have earned in their careers.
Yes.
And I had to double check this, but 211 million. That's how much Tobias Harris has earned in his tenure. 0 All-Star appearances.
And that's just salary as well, isn't it? That's not endorsements or anything else.
Yeah, salary.
A great player, don't get me wrong. But,
Is he?
I think in
Is
good
he?
teams, yeah, I think so. When he's in the right team, he's a great player. He can give you a good 20 points a night.
Okay. So is he just an expensive role player?
I hate to say it, I think teams have played him on his not necessarily on what he's doing, but what the potential that he's got to do. Always thinking that he's going to take that next step, and he's just never quite got there.
So is he the modern Chris Webber? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but then Chris Webber is another what if. Like, I think he was a superstar. He got into those All-Star games and was the leader of a team. Tobias Harris has never been the man in a team. He's always been number 2 or number 3, hasn't he?
But Webber didn't get a chip, did he?
No, he didn't get a chip, but he was there or thereabouts. If it hadn't been for Shaq and Kobe, I think he would have done.
Well, if he hadn't, because he got traded originally, didn't he, when he came in the league?
Yes, he went into the Warriors, wasn't it? He was drafted by. I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that he initially refused to play for them because he didn't want to be a Warrior, because at that time they weren't the franchise that they're known to be now.
That would have been Chris Mullin era. People like that.
And towards the end of Chris Mullin's career as well.
Yeah.
I think when he was drafted, I'm pretty sure even Tim Hardaway had gone off to Miami at that point. So
Yeah.
The TMC had been broken down. Yeah, Mitch Richmond had gone off to where was he went to? Sacramento? I can't remember. No, he definitely played, but did he go to Atlanta before? I know he was with Atlanta as well. But yeah, he moved around a little bit towards the end of his career. But I'm pretty sure both Mitch Richmond and Tim Hardaway had left, and Mullin was left, like the only sort of veteran left in the team.
And he was veteran as well.
So, but no, I think Webber is one of those what ifs. If he'd been drafted by a different team, same as was it Carmelo Anthony was initially going to be drafted by the Pistons the year that they won was it the year before?
No, do you know what? No. He went to the right spot.
For him,
as
a player. However, I think if he'd gone into the Pistons the season that they won, yes, he was a bit of a defensive liability on a defensive-minded team. It would have been a different story because he would have got a chip in his first 1 or 2 seasons, possibly. Or what ifs?
Look, he did his thing at Denver, and him going to New York, that's where he should have won his chip.
Yeah, definitely. And with some of the players he had around him, Stoudemire and like, they should have pushed.
That should have been something, but it wasn't. No. Just, yeah.
Again, another one that should have held on for just a little bit longer and gone straight to Miami. They would have been unstoppable then, because that was the other. I think if he'd taken one, so if he hadn't taken the extension with New York,
of course,
Miami would have taken him on.
Yeah,
it would have been.
But then, so then you get the scenario when, people are talking about Steph, for example. When Steph retiring, is he going to? He's clearly frustrated with Draymond. This is nicely segue into NBA. So,
the clips we've had recently of him.
Draymond's maybe not separating reality from what's going on in his head. He's always been a challenging player, which is fine, and everyone always likes a little bit of hustle and bustle. But it does seem the NBA recently, everyone's getting chippy, everyone's having little snipes, and everyone's getting all. It's just too, not even fighty. I don't know what it is, but it's just not very classy the way everyone's doing it. And I'm not saying Lane Beer or the guys when they were playing dirty and foul and stuff, they weren't classy about it.
But again, it was that was their role. It was that era.
And that era's gone. That doesn't, like, you can't put, as much as we say, oh, that was fun, and you watch people and they were getting scraps and stuff, like watching Rick Schmidt getting like absolutely mullered. Like, you can't, even someone like Sean Kemp, the way he used to dunk on people, and I love Sean. Someone does that in a game now.
Oh, that's a tech.
That's a tech, done. Like, who was it got a tech recently for, they dunked it and they swung on the ring to avoid.
Oh, it's a player that was underneath them.
Yeah, there was someone literally underneath.
On top of somebody.
And they dunked it, and obviously, and they were coming in as well. So it was a two-handed swinging, like monster dunk.
Yeah.
It was a high
the momentum
energy,
was making their bodies.
Yeah. So they swung up, and then they literally just slightly swung to the side and let go. It wasn't like they was hanging on for ages. It was just and they got the tee for that. And you think, hang on a minute, if he'd have let go, he literally would have swung into the backboard or landed on
somebody out. Yeah.
It's like, he literally just stopped his momentum and then came down. What else is he meant to do?
It's almost like, and I don't like to say it, are some of the referees having a bit of a power trip?
Of course they are.
I think it was right at the beginning of this season, Jason Tatum got a tech for clapping his hands. So he was angry with a call, didn't say anything, didn't say that the call was wrong, but yeah, clapped his hands and like obviously was angry about it and got a tech for it.
Oh, yeah. They've done that with the refs as well, when someone was shouting and pointing, and then they go, right, you get a T for that. You think, what was he getting tech for? No reason for it.
Yeah.
But so I knew refs was going to come up, and I actually saved a clip from...
It's not Kelly Oubre Jr., is it?
Official NBA refs. They actually do a little thing, and it was talking about avoiding contact for screens.
Right.
So I actually thought it was great, and actually talking through how someone does a move, and they said this call was absolutely right. And at first I thought, no, it's not, but it is a moving screen, because when he comes in,
yeah, he's still got the momentum.
He's still got the moving, and he actually twists
his shoulder into it. Yeah. But then, how do you see that in real time?
Well, that's the thing. She is standing. You can see in the clip, she's standing right in front. So what she clearly saw was not that he got into position, because the
foot position was
exactly
set. Yeah.
So that's what the refs clearly must do. Not just look at the foot position.
Yeah.
Oh, their feet are set. It's like, well, what's the rest of them doing? Because you can't just be there and like his knees are twisting in, and he's twisting his shoulders. It's like, no, he's still got momentum. He's moving, and then the person coming off of him, it's like, that's a moving screen, and it's like almost a push off the way he does it. So that's 100% the right call. But if you were just a little bit further back,
watching that in real time,
he hasn't moved.
Yeah,
it's like, no, but his foot span is
and it is a very wide stance.
It's like 2.5 meters or something crazy. I don't know, probably not, but it's massive.
Yeah.
And then he's doing that on it. It's like that you're making an advantage there.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of calls I love following that little thing, because they show it from that ref's perspective, and you think that's why they called that.
Yeah. Watching it back, that's the other thing. Like, often you see things like, so it's strangely enough, it's one of the reasons I quite like watching the BBL games. If I watch a game, I will then watch the highlights the following day, because when you watch the game, they don't always go back to replays of contested calls.
No, they don't.
Whereas in the highlights, they'll often show a replay of a call, so you can see, it was the right call. I've seen some that I've thought, that's an absolute howler. How they've called that the wrong way. You then watch the highlights and you see, no, that was exactly like that one. It was a correct call.
So when the NBA do stuff, and it's not a like you say, not a criticism with the BBL. It's just that's the difference that the NBA do, because they have bigger courts. They have more cameras around.
Yeah.
Just a simple thing like that. So you are seeing it from the ref's point of view, and sometimes from down looking up.
Yeah.
So then you see, like you say, that angle that you wouldn't see otherwise. Like if you're looking at just from the side, just like a football game,
you wouldn't see the shoulder.
You can't see that,
no.
Especially if it's Caledonia versus Surrey and they're wearing the same colour kit.
You're not even sure who.
You're like, who's it? I don't know. Is
it a block? Is it a charge?
Unless the ref goes in and clotheslines someone, you got no idea who it is. But literally, when you're watching those, you think, hang on a minute, that looks like it was a travel. And then when you see it from the other side and you go, okay, I can see what the ref's seeing now. It's not a travel.
Yeah.
But because these two people are running next to each other or something, from this angle in the camera, you're blending two legs.
Yeah.
And it's just really easy to misstep that.
Whereas I guess the referee can just, watching something in real time, in person, you can lock on, right, that's the person I'm watching, and not your peripherals, but your focus is on the ball handler, for example, and the defender, you're watching them, but as a secondary almost.
So the question for all refs, and I think it's a valid one for all refs in different leagues, what is the onus that you put on keeping the rule book clean and adhering to it, rather, whilst providing a product for entertainment?
An interesting one. That is a good question.
Because people go to watch the games for entertainment.
Yeah.
And the people who are paying the most money for that entertainment are usually the TV and the media companies to be able to show the rights to all of their followers, listeners, subscribers, etc. So they're the ones who put the biggest amount of money in. Why is the most money in the Premiership? Because of sponsorship. Why has the NBA got that? Because of sponsorship. Why is Major League Baseball? Because they've got endless contracts, but also sponsorship.
Yeah.
That's all. It always comes down to the money stuff, which is, you can't avoid anything like that in life. But when you look at that now and you think, well, hang on a minute, how you've got to appease those people, so you want a flowing game.
Yeah, you don't want it to be stop-starty.
No, you don't want, and you can have games that don't have to stop-start, like rugby, for example.
Yeah.
And you can think, well, there's a misdemeanor, I'll let that go because that was kind of in-game.
Yeah.
And basketball does have a lot of that. I won't say the non-contact sport that everyone talks about.
Yeah,
it's not non-contact.
The number of times, so yeah, you can't, so for example, in rugby, where you can play advantage, right, that was a penalty.
Yeah.
However, the team that were in possession have still got possession.
Yeah.
So we'll allow that to continue until it breaks down. All right, then we'll bring it back to that foul. You don't quite have that in basketball in the same way, yet there are some referees who will make calls in such a way that it's almost like you have the advantage.
But also basketball, for the size of the court, have multiple refs.
Yes.
Places like football, yes, you have a linesman and a ref, and then you have the TVs and stuff, or rugby.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is actually usually just one person running up and down having a jolly.
The linesman can only try to they're not identifying a foul or a misplay or what have you, but they're trying to flag that to the referee. The referee is still the one that has to call it. They then have to stop the play. The linesman then has to explain it to them. In basketball, it should be only one referee making the call from whatever position they're in. However, they will still liaise and try and explain when a whistle's blown. Right, okay, like we were saying with that that moving screen, trying to identify whether it is actually a foul or what, those types of things. It is an interesting one, and there should be fewer mistakes because you've got 2 or 3 referees on the court effectively.
100% should be, but it's just odd. You look at tennis. They've got machines that are looking for touching ball, everything on the side. They've also got people who are looking just down. Your job is to look down that line.
One line.
That's all you got to do. Just look down that line. That's it.
Must be difficult though.
So how many? They've got one umpire. That's the middle person. But actually, they've technically got like 10 refs.
Yeah.
Because you've got
looking
all the
at
equipment and all the people looking around.
Yeah.
So basketball is not unique, but it has a very unusual system where you have almost 3 independent people that are kind of working together, but they're not. And
just thinking about that, but bringing tennis into it, is it down to the speed of play? A tennis ball travels ridiculously fast. You're looking at something that's traveling at 70 odd miles an hour on average.
How fast does someone sling a basketball if they want to, though?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Basketball is a fast-moving sport.
Yeah.
So is it, in a faster-moving sport, you need more eyes?
Potentially.
Football can be fast, but most of the time it's a slower-paced game.
And it's spaced out.
Spaced out. Rugby, exactly the same.
Yeah.
There are periods where it's fast, but normally those periods are one person running with the ball or someone hoofing a kick a long distance. That's
what about cricket? One dude there, isn't it?
So you've got one umpire, but you've got a secondary on the pitch as well.
Okay.
And then you've also got numerous different camera umpires.
Yeah, that's pretty. I'm saying it's just a pretty slow game, though, isn't it?
But it's a bit. But the ball travels fast, so it's a. Yes, the game is slow.
Yeah,
but the speed,
tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But
because it's all down to the perspective of what you see. I mean, with something like say cricket, if a stump gets knocked over, there's a thing.
Yeah, that's
an action has occurred.
Yeah.
If a basket goes up, if someone throws the ball up, even if they do that Luca flipping underarm bucket, and even if you do that, it goes in. There you go.
But even saying that, in basketball, there are mistakes. You must have seen the James Harden dunk. We're going back a long while now, where the ball looped off the net and back through, and it looked like it then bubbled around the hoop.
Yep.
The basket didn't count because the referee on the court said no, it didn't clear the bottom of the net.
Yeah.
And there's also this is something I only found out relatively recently. In basketball, for a basket to count, the ball actually has to clear the bottom of the net. There have been cases where players, it has to actually go through the bottom of the net. Doesn't matter what position the net's in, but it has to actually clear the bottom of the net. There have been cases where players have dunked a ball, and as they've then travelled under the basket, it's hit the top of their head. So the ball
I've heard of
hasn't
that.
completely cleared the net, and it's then bounced back out through the top of the hoop.
Oh, I just thought
And
it
that
was
doesn't
that
count.
they did it and it just bounced off. I didn't realise that was the reason.
So if it hasn't actually gone through the bottom of the net, so a player with longer arms, that basket would count, because for it to hit their head, it has to get through the bottom of the net to then bounce back
well,
up.
there we go, Wemby.
But yeah, I've only seen it maybe 2 or 3 cases where it's been called.
Wow, okay.
But yeah, strange little things like that. But again, that's something that you couldn't necessarily see in real time.
No.
You'd have to watch it as a replay or have a secondary person. So one referee that's watching the player dribble the ball up, and then somebody else who's just watching the bottom of the net.
Well, as you casually just mentioned real time, I think it's only right that we bring up the mention of the slightly misjudged 3-point lines.
This is only something you brought to my attention earlier today.
Yeah. So in the NCAA, that small independent body over in the States, NC State and Texas were playing games.
This was the
in the women's
league, wasn't
tournament.
it?
Yep, women's tournament. The 3-point lines are different at each end of the court.
And not slightly different, is it?
No.
It's a good distance.
One side is different than the other, and it was significant. It's like about almost a foot. How do you get that wrong?
That's somebody who's just confused centimeters and inches when they've been looking at the details for where they're painting the lines.
What's genius is that when you look at the pictures, it's just such a stark picture. You think, surely someone noticed that.
Well, initially you must be looking at it thinking, is it just the camera angle that's different that makes it look? But it's they got tape measures out in the lot, didn't they?
Yeah, and this is when the NCAA have got they had to get the tape measures out all the way, and then they said we're just going to carry on playing. I mean, you made a point earlier saying about it that effectively you're going to be changing ends anyway, so someone's going to have the advantage, someone will have the disadvantage, so it will even itself out.
But would it?
I don't think it would.
If
Whoever's
for example,
starting with the one that's truer to how they play, because maybe say we're assuming that it's a longer, but what if it's shorter?
True, yeah.
Because if you're playing on a shorter 3, you're actually
sort of staggering your shot almost.
Yeah, because there's obviously that psychological thing of who's ever going to take a shot. I mean, I say not Michael Jordan, but he loved shooting in inside.
Yeah, mid-range.
He liked that mid-range shot, but he was closer than a step inside the 3-point line.
Yeah.
But who would, in their right mind, take a step just
inside the 3-point
just inside
line.
the 3-point line and bang that up? You wouldn't.
You'd be subbed out by your coach if you did.
Yeah, and if you kept hitting them as well, they'd be like, take a step back.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So if that line is that far forward, you'd be not in that rhythm.
Yeah. You'd struggle. It is that muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
But then I also wonder whether fatigue would play a part. So if, for example, you were to be shooting on the longer end for the first half, and then the shorter end for the second half, would that be an advantage because you haven't got to hoik the ball quite as far?
Okay, I'm going to quote the WBBL Women's All-Star game for that, because the women went out and played an awesome All-Star game, totally stole the whole All-Star weekend.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
And then straight after that, they played the 3-point game.
Yep, like within 15 minutes of their game finishing.
And both the ladies playing were absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
Absolutely exhausted.
You can see it.
And even in the interview afterwards, the first shooter, I've totally forgotten, I can't remember who was in it, but they actually were saying, what are you going to do for the next round? Because they were supposed to have a second round. They didn't do it. They just went, one and done, we'll just give it to Matt Morgan, which I, not saying he didn't deserve it, but I think that's really harsh. You're supposed to have 2 rounds. That's how it works.
Should have been played. I wonder whether that was trying to catch up with time, whether they'd fallen off on something.
Well, I mean, the organisation, they did it really well to get it all in one day, but it's not a one-day event. Anyway, the first thing that she said was, I've got to use my legs.
Yeah.
They went, really? It was like, oh yeah, I was gone. And then when the second lady was shooting, I mean, it was abysmal.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm done. I'm toast.
Just exhausted.
She's like, I'm just toast. I've just done 40 odd minutes running up and down the
and
court.
both the girls played big minutes in the
They
All-Star
played
game as
full.
well,
They
didn't
played full minutes, and you think, okay, and then the guys just wandered out.
That's part of their
locker-
warm up.
Yeah, they just wandered out of the locker room and went, oh, yeah, we're doing that competition thing.
Yeah.
They probably just got there 5 minutes before. So that is a perfect example of being like pooped out.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect example. But what is staggering about that leads me to my second point, which was talking about the ladies' game. It's not just NCAA, but the ladies' game over in the States and the UK. You mentioned off air about the London Lions women's.
Yes. Yeah.
I've totally forgot the name of the team. I tried to write it down, but I know it's
Besiktas.
Besiktas?
Yeah. They're playing. In fact, playing this evening. I've got the game saved, ready to watch when we get back.
Okay, I won't ruin it for you. But so they've been doing great things. Obviously, there's been some circumstantial changes with the London Lions ladies that are not going to be playing in Europe next year, which is pretty disappointing to hear.
Great shame.
But the ladies' game as a whole is rising up.
Absolutely.
We've heard Shaq talking about Temi,
Yes.
and they're obviously going over to the WNBA. No questions with that. I spoke to Paul yesterday, and he's doing all right. And he said, I was watching the women's basketball game with Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And it was it against LSU? I think it was. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I believe it was.
He said, I've just put it on because I saw the hype and I was like, I haven't seen one of these yet.
See what it's about.
He was like, that is one of the best games I've watched ever. I'm like, yeah.
Real competitive.
It's like they are savage.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are really going for it.
Yeah.
And so Carmelo Anthony, I think it was a few months back, was talking about the women's game, saying how it's more like pure basketball.
Yeah.
And I really like the way that he describes that.
It's not about athleticism. Don't get me wrong, there are athletes that play the game,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about scoring more baskets than your opponent, however you can do it.
Doing things with strategy.
Yep.
And outthinking and all the stuff we've been talking about LeBron
Exactly
and that.
that, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all of those sort of things that come into play. But it still staggers me. The shot release of the ladies' game is very different to the men's shot release.
Yeah.
They seem very quick.
Yep. They're getting that shot off as quick as they can.
So at first you think it just looks like they're like flinging it up.
Yeah.
But it's just that release because Steph Curry's got a very unusual release, hasn't he?
Fast,
Yeah.
but it is an unusual.
I'm trying to think who it was now, and he used to do that real looping almost behind his head, and he'd loop it really high and up. I can't think of what the player was off the top of my head now.
Well, Larry Bird had that type of shot.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Larry had a big swinging shot, didn't he? I want to say Dirk didn't used to do that, but he pull it back quite a bit. But just, almost at the behind the head sort of thing. So having unconventional shots, not a thing, but every player
seems to have that quick.
Very, very quick release. So again, you're talking about the athleticism. I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah.
Because when you see some of the guys, they are physically big.
Yep.
And very bulk. I mean, we've been talking about LeBron. Let's talk about LeBron Miami when he went Super Hulk.
Yeah.
And when he did that, he was a big dude.
Yeah.
Him jumping up. And
You didn't want to get in his way.
No, you didn't want to get his way. Him trying to jump up and do like one of those faded shots or whatever. Not many people are stopping that.
No.
Or getting in the way of that. But because of that, they hang up a bit more. And they take a bit more time. And they do that. The ladies, it's like, bang, there's a space. And it's...
I wonder as well with the men's game, whether they're trying to absorb contact.
Yeah.
They're thinking that taking their time with the shot
It's
to
part
draw
of the
a
game.
foul.
Yeah.
You don't... I'd have to have a look at it, but I don't seem... In the women's games that I've watched a good few BBL games, there's not as many free throws as there are in men's games.
Not as
So are
many.
there fewer fouls committed because of the fact they're not trying to draw the contact.
Funnily enough, when they're playing against the game they just played against Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark,
Yes.
that last game, Angel got fouled out because they were drawing a foul.
Yep.
And they drew the foul, got the charge to get her out, and everyone's giving her a little wave. Whatever. And whether she's playing the bag.
Oh, she does like to play the villain.
Whereas, someone always plays the villain, and you always got to have those sort of characters in there. But yeah, they definitely do it on a tactical basis.
Yeah.
It's not every play.
Yeah.
But there's definitely we need to do that. There's a bit more of that strategy involved. But I just find it fascinating the shot itself is it's a different type of shot. And it just fascinates me. But though the women's game, Iowa LSU averaged 12.3 million viewers.
Crazy numbers.
That's more than every women's college basketball game ever. That's insane. That's how much
it's grown in the last.
It's just snowballed.
Yeah, it's skyrocketed.
More than every ESPN college basketball game ever. That's how crazy this has gotten. And it's just fevered. Like the tickets are selling out 4 times the price.
And what on like the resale?
Yeah, and they've sold out. And the whole March Madness thing, it's all been about the women's game. Literally, people can name, these are the top 6, 7 female athletes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's men's March Madness as well.
It was like
who's that?
A side note.
Honestly, I've seen some of the bitterness, some of the from the men's teams. It seems they're coming out. So, no, we're playing great games, and we're the next draft pick, and we'll be in the NBA. And people are like, I had no idea who you are.
You may well be, but people are bothered about this.
Yeah, like no one's bought into it. So, I think it's huge, really exciting,
and a good thing.
And then Big 3 you mentioned.
Oh yeah, so with Ice Cube offering Caitlin Clark, was it 5 million to come and play a season in the Big 3, and she's still eligible to go and play in the WNBA
because it's summer league basically, isn't it?
Which I think it's a win-win. It's a win for her because she'll be earning something ridiculous like 10 times what she'd earn in her WNBA salary, just by playing one season in the Big 3. And that's not going into the Big 3 and playing a women's Big 3. That's going in and playing in the Big 3, going up and playing against men.
12.3 million viewers. More than every NHL game last season. More than every MLB's game last season. Or MLS, for that matter. And most NBA games, bar a couple.
Yeah.
That's it.
Shows.
That's how big that is. Just that whole... I might say not when the media do things right, because the media are still the media, but the way that everyone has just grabbed onto that, and I think it's my opinion, just mine, is they've hyped it, and then people have watched it,
and
they've hyped it enough and gone, oh no, this is genuine.
I'll watch a bit. Oh no, actually.
Oh yes, it's good.
Yeah. Well, exactly what Paul was saying.
Yeah, and then they've seen some of the other bits where March Madness was a thing and it's been a thing like historically.
Yeah.
They've gone, just some like high school kids are playing or whatever. Yeah, okay. But no, this is actually fevered, and then people have grabbed hold of it, and because they're saying let's raise up. Why are we not talking about women's basketball?
It's different to what they're used to. It's
exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I'm sure that the March Madness in the men's is great basketball to watch. But
no one's interested.
But you could watch one season or another season, and it's all much of a muchness. They're playing a similar type of basketball. You watch the women's game, and it's different to what you're used to seeing. So it is exciting. It's something that people are interested to see.
So if people have gone on this now, then they're going to be going, well, what's going to happen now? Well, are they going to go WNBA? Okay, well, maybe I should start watching
exactly that. But this is where I think, so there's been a lot in the last couple of years talked about with the pay divide between WNBA and NBA.
Yep.
And it's...
you're going there,
I hate to say it.
Wow.
There were... I can't think of her name now. Was complaining about how little WNBA players get paid in relation to NBA players.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching...
Are you talking about the ex-player who was talking about
the documentary?
Mm-hmm.
And they then went on to say, well, okay, let's look at how much money the NBA makes.
Mm-hmm.
And if we then divide that by the number of players there are in the NBA, the WNBA makes drastically less. The players are actually, as a percentage of the overall earnings, WNBA players actually make a greater percentage of overall earnings in comparison to the league than NBA players do.
Mm.
So the pay divide, yes, the difference in what they earn is huge. The difference in what they pull as a league is way, way bigger.
Yep.
Hopefully, this is the sort of thing that can get the WNBA that viewership, that interest, that means that it starts making more money, and the women that are playing in the league can start earning some decent bucks. Because don't get me wrong, they're earning a living playing in the WNBA.
Mm.
they're not making millions the same way as the NBA players do.
No.
If you get into the NBA now, you're a millionaire. Doesn't matter how many fewer minutes you get to play.
Yep.
I mean, there are players who probably just warm a bench and are earning millions. The WNBA players, I think the top earners are on like 800,000 a year or something like that. They're not even making $1 million, which is scary.
So Kobe once said, like, when you see those players that they make it to the NBA, and then you see them and the way that they react to the money, you go, okay, you're here for the paycheck.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, you're easy. You don't have to worry about you. You see, because they
don't love the game.
They don't love the game. Year 2, they're foot offs.
Yep.
Done. And then every now and again, it'll be, it's contract year. Okay, you're going to shine your shoes up. And you can spot them. You can spot them. And some of them have been journeymen.
Yep.
And some of them have done okay. I always used to put Chris Paul in that bracket myself personally.
You think?
I think he's a good player. I'm not saying he doesn't take anyone away from him being a good player.
No.
But I think he played at the right times when he needed to play at the right times.
Yep.
But
Got himself the big contracts.
He's done okay. I mean, we just talked about Tobias and those sort of people. Jordan Poole.
Yep.
And who's that other lunatic who should Kyle Kuzma? Like, whoever gave him a load of money, it should have been thrown in the bin. Like,
but then there are some that have gone. I'm not going to say gone the other way. DeAndre Ayton, I remember hearing when he came into the league. Someone said, "What would success in the NBA mean to you?" And his response was, "Getting my second contract." Now, a lot of people took that as you're here just to earn money, because that rookie contract, don't get me wrong, it's millions, but it's that second contract is what makes you the potentially generational wealth.
Yep.
People looked at that not misclipped it, but clipped that quote as, I want to get to that second contract because I want the money. He has gone back and said, no. What I meant was, I don't want to be that person that gets into the NBA, plays the 5 or 6 years under a rookie contract, and then people realise actually he's not that good, we'll release him, and he ends up going off and playing overseas or doesn't play any more basketball.
Yeah.
That was what he meant by getting to the second contract.
Yeah.
When he moved to Portland, that clip got rehashed and brought back out again, because people are thinking, he's going to go to Portland, play really well to try and get his third contract, when in fact he ended up playing really badly to start off with, but has shown he can play basketball, and he does want to do it now that he's had a bit of time to settle into the team. And it's
I believe, wasn't he the first pick?
Yep.
Instead of Luka.
Yeah. It's a weird. Don't get me wrong. And again, I think that was a team not necessarily picking the best player, but as you alluded to earlier, people had worries over Luka when it came to his. Yes, he's played in Europe. Yes, he's won MVP in Europe. Can he do that in the NBA over an 82-game season? That was one of the questions. Yeah.
And then he just came over and ate more pies and proved that he can. He's got to put the ice cream down. He really has. You say, look at Joker as well. You think, they're not athletically built guys, and they don't care. They just don't. That's not their game.
They play at their own pace. And,
that's not their game. They don't care. But I don't know. Just have a bit.
Would that be the
have
edge?
A bit of pride and just put the Ben and Jerry's down. Just a little bit. I don't know. But I think a lot of people look at it and say, how much better would you be if you
had the
if you put a little bit more into it? But you go, they do enough. They're 40 points. They lead their teams. They do everything. Like, is it going to add? No, they're not going to be massive dunkers. They're not that sort of athletic person.
Both Luka and Joker seem to do that thing that Shaq did, whereas they almost use the season as their conditioning for the postseason.
Yeah.
But Kobe's criticism of Shaq for that was, if you use the off season to prepare you for the season's gonna get you fit for the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
So if you've done that extra work in the preseason and the off season, you come into the season fitter, so you're probably going to do better in the season. You then go into the playoffs fitter again. But it's that balance. Do you then fatigue yourself too much during the season to be able to then up it in the playoffs?
Yeah, you do. And also, I think they need to be doing fundamental stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I think they should do. And when we saw, was it 4 years ago now, or almost, in the lockdown, when they did the bubble.
Yeah.
And you saw guys who were like, I literally didn't have a basketball. I haven't picked a ball up because I haven't gone to facility. I haven't really trained or anything. Some of those first games were like, oh, good Lord.
They really struggled.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the physical fitness. And because those guys all operate on such high levels, it's like any athlete. If you get an injury or you take a back seat, even a couple of weeks, it instead of operating at that 95 percentile, you're down at like 75. You're almost like just a regular person.
Yeah. You're a role player all of a sudden.
Yeah,
but then there were some other funny things with the bubble as well. You had players who play off of the crowd, who didn't have the crowd there to boost them, that didn't play as well.
No.
And then potentially players, I don't know, I'm just putting this out there, might suffer from a bit of anxiety or stage fright or those sort of similar things, that played amazingly. I forget his name now. He was playing for the Pacers at the time. TJ something. Oh, what was his surname? But they were naming him Bubble Jordan because he was going out scoring 30, 35 points when normally he was averaging
TJ
15.
Lawson or something like that.
It'll come to me.
His name.
2 o'clock in the morning, it'll pop into my head. But yeah, had an absolute blinder in the bubble, played out of his skin, and has never done it again since.
No.
So it's just a completely different environment, isn't it?
It totally is. And, everyone puts an asterisk on the Lakers winning that, blah, blah, blah. Fair enough. You could put an asterisk on the Spurs winning theirs when they had the lockout
season, yeah.
And there's an asterisk. There is, I think, an official asterisk on that one.
What is it? Yeah.
Because it's 50 games, was that season?
So 50, 52, something like that. So it was a big reduction.
Yeah.
But then there's some NBA players that argue that the bubble victory was even more difficult because you weren't able to see people and travel around. Yes, physically it was easier because you didn't have to travel to games. You didn't have the jet lag. You didn't have the long road trips and this, that, and the other. But it's a balance, isn't it? What affects one player negatively can affect another player positively, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, they did what they could when they did it. The bottom line is NBA didn't capitalise being the only major sport
at that time.
At the time globally, and they not only lost viewership of people who were quite seasoned, but they didn't encourage new people to join.
No,
and then they let a lot of teams do a lot of outspoken things and do things a certain way.
Yeah, true.
Like, you guys are all still right or wrong, whether you're doing good things or bad things. It's the same as whenever they talk about anything, politics, religion, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I understand there's platforms, but unfortunately, sometimes they do the wrong things for the right reasons, or vice versa. And you think the league dropped a ball there, and they paid for it. They lost quite a lot of money because of that.
Yeah.
But they're doing all right. They're doing okay at the moment. I think the NBA's flourishing. It looks like
a few things back.
Yeah.
Just need to fix the All-Star weekend. It will be good.
Yeah. Just don't. I mean, I'm very interested to see how the playoffs come up. We're coming up to that point now where I actually went on the NBA and it actually flashed up, which I'm very surprised they're doing it this early, but they actually flashed up a whole playoff picture where everything would stand at the moment. That's what it would stand at the moment. And you look at that and think, all right, so that'd be like Lakers or Golden State with a play-in.
Again.
Yeah, and then you'd also have Sacramento and Phoenix as a play-in.
Some interesting teams. I mean, that Phoenix being in the play-in, just it shouldn't happen.
The Mavs are in 5th. It's all right. It's okay.
You're happy.
I'm happy. Look, they're in 5th. They're above the Pelicans. Good. Why the Pelicans are still up there, I don't know.
Yeah, they've had a blinder of a season.
How?
I think rather than them playing particularly well, it's teams like Phoenix not playing to their potential.
I mean, on Phoenix, it's not is Kevin Durant cursed. I'm not saying it that way. But like, let's roll back just Kevin Durant at Seattle. I've already given Russ his props because I was always whinging that Russ got an award for Seattle's highest scorer. above Gary Payton.
Yeah.
Because the books moved when they changed.
Yes.
But did you know that he was actually drafted by Seattle?
At the season they moved, wasn't it?
9 days later they moved.
Crazy.
Or sort of 6-9 days later. That's literally, so he literally, the pictures of Russ,
In a Seattle.
he's in
cap.
Seattle hat and everything. And they're like, oh, dude, you're going to, they didn't even know.
That's
So they drafted, he was
nuts.
drafted as a Sonic. That's why I love Westbrook. That's
Imagine
it.
this.
It made, as soon as that happened, I went, no, I need to forgive you, Russ. That's why I love you. It makes all the sense now. But you had Durant, you had Westbrook, then you had Paul George.
Yep.
Oh,
Harden before that.
pop a bit of Harden in there as well. Like, how did they not do anything? That's it.
It was.
How did they not? That's it.
They got to the finals that one time, didn't they?
Yeah, but how did just? There's no reason they shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
There's no reason.
I just
And then Durant goes over to Golden State and does it in a kind of bitter way that people didn't like. Yes, he picked an injury and went to New Jersey or Brooklyn.
Brooklyn it is now.
But
Showing your age.
yeah. But still, Brooklyn. You go. He was there with you had Kyrie.
Yep.
You had Jarrett Allen, great player. I loved Allen, great defensive player. And you think they could do something here.
But still weren't happy with the hand they had and had to bring somebody else in.
And now it's gone to Phoenix, and you go, hang on. So you got Booker. They just bought who did they bring in from Washington?
From Washington. Oh, Beal.
Yeah, Bradley Beal. So you hang on, right? So you got Bradley Beal, Booker's there.
Yep.
There's a couple of decent supporters there.
Yeah.
Chris Paul for a bit.
Yep.
But that obviously he's moved off. But still, you go, why can't you make it work?
It's not ability. That's the thing, isn't it? They've on any given night, KD can go out and score 35-40. On any given night, Booker can go out and score 35-40. On any given night, Beal can go out and score 35 or 40. They just don't seem to be able to put it all together.
Because the only way they score 30 or 40 is if the ball's in their hands.
They're ball dominant.
Yeah.
But then
so
let's flip that.
No, because James Harden's he is literally the perfect example of Kobe. They're perfect examples of that. Their teams can literally be scoring 15 points in total.
Yep.
And they'll have a 50 or 60 point game. And they go, what'd you win by? It was like, it was 90 so-and-so. I put 60 or 70 of those points up. Like Embiid the other night.
Yep.
Or that picture of who's the dude with Jordan where he's like, I remember when me and Jordan combined for 60 points or something.
He scored one.
He scored one
throw.
point. He's like, me and Jordan's combined for this horrific score.
Talking of the ball dominant players, last season, everyone was criticising the Mavs for bringing Kyrie Irving in for that reason, because Luka is a ball dominant player. I did. But this season, they gelled.
They are brilliant.
They're getting it to work.
They are absolutely. I never thought that in a million. Whoever said that's a great idea.
And I think we alluded to it last time I was in. We were talking about how Kyrie is playing more of the latter stage Allen Iverson role, where he's playing more of a shooting guard than he is a point guard, which seems to suit him. Seems to suit him.
Listen, he's getting up and dunking it.
Exactly, which he wasn't doing.
He's like, I don't know what it is. I'm in my 30s now and I'm dunking. He still wasn't doing it in my 20s.
Yeah.
But it's like they've brought, whether it's because he's left the East Coast.
Yeah.
And, what the stuff he had going on with Celtics and then in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It just, and that time and whatever was going on.
And he seems to have left a lot of that drama and stuff
That's
behind
gone.
him, hasn't he? Yeah.
And that was my main reason I didn't want him coming. It was not his skill.
Yeah.
But it was a case of, are you the poison pill that you're bringing?
Too many conspiracy theories.
Well, it's just what are you bringing with you?
Yeah.
It's I would call it the Dennis Rodman effect. You go, I'm bringing this person in because they're going to do this job.
Yeah.
But I know they're also going to cause this.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring in Dylan Brooks. I know he's going to put these numbers on the board and he's going to be defensively be
he's
great.
Going to agitate the hell out of their number one person.
And he's going to do things sometimes that we go, please shut up.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to balance it.
You've got your legal team on speed dial at any point.
Reggie Miller would have had the same thing.
But then, sorry to go back on the flip side, with Rodman, have you heard the theory that the Spurs traded him to Chicago in a hope that he would ruin Chicago? They like, because he had, what was it, 2 or 3 seasons with the Spurs?
Yeah,
he didn't gel. But then you had a really, stout, devout Christian in your main man, David Robinson. And then you've got a very left field, very liberal, quote unquote, strange person in Dennis Rodman. They just couldn't get on.
But that was the point where Rodman very quickly he expedited that persona as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
when he was in Detroit. But as he went to the San Antonio, that's when that all appeared.
That's when the bleached hair, the tattoos, everything came out.
Yeah, and everyone was like, what is going on here? You go, oh, maybe because you're in such a restricted environment, that's what suddenly brought this out.
Maybe it was, Detroit maybe a bit more relaxed.
And then in Chicago, they went, right, you go do what you need to do, but you have to be here on this day.
Yeah, they let him be himself.
Yeah.
I wonder, could it be the fact he felt he was like shackled when he was in San Antonio? It didn't work. But again, he set a bunch of records at San Antonio. It wasn't like he was playing badly.
No.
He just didn't fit in with the team.
Yeah, and that's where you have those, like we've said, we're talking about Chris Webber and those sort of characters, but the Chris Pauls of the land and the I'm going to say Paul Pierce. If Paul Pierce was on any other team other than that Celtics team that won a ring, he wouldn't have been.
Don't get me wrong; he was a great individual player.
Yeah.
He could score the ball at any given point. I don't think he had the right mentality to be an elite sportsman.
No. Then you flip it the other way and go, Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, if they'd been able to get the right pieces around him,
he'd have got a ring.
Minnesota.
And would he have got, look at the teams that he was up against at that point, and then you're going Lakers and all those sort of teams. You go, it's tough teams that he's up against.
Oh, yeah.
But he, unfortunately, was just that character in the wrong team. Went on the right team. Oh, look, 2008, bang, there's a ring.
And that was, I'm sure there was something with Minnesota where there was a player that they had signed an extension with, but they had some funny clause in his contract where they basically said, right, if you only take $4 million this season and $4 million the season after, when you get to extension point again, we can give you what was the max at that point.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have a caveat like that in an NBA contract. You couldn't promise somebody something in a future contract.
Yeah.
You had to either give it to them in this contract and they accepted it, or you gave them the reduced contract and they accepted that. But because it came out that, wasn't it Celtics player, McHale was the GM at the time at Minnesota.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And I think it was him. I think he was new into being a GM and didn't realise you couldn't make those future promises. And the NBA absolutely penalised the Timberwolves. So they ended up losing a bunch of draft picks and stuff that could have helped to build around Kevin Garnett. And they couldn't do it because of some effectively managerial errors.
And that's because he was a high school player as well, wasn't he? He's like a LeBron. He just came straight out.
Yeah.
He was one.
And came out firing as well, I'm pretty sure.
He was one of, if not the first, I think, high school player that came out.
He was the first in a long time. I think prior to that, you had to go back to the 70s. And I think Darryl Dawkins had done
because now, fast forward, they're talking about doing it again, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which is just a ridiculous idea.
It's, I think, because it's an age cap, isn't it? You have to be 19 at the point you were drafted.
Yeah.
Have completed high school to then be drafted, and it didn't matter how old you were, because I'm sure the youngest player was a Lakers player who was only 18 and 6 days the day he played his first NBA game.
Oh wow.
It was absolutely nuts. But that, I think, is going to the point where you're too young, just not mature enough to.
I just think they need to put it a little bit the other way, actually.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, go back to the sort of the old days where it was 21, 22 when you're getting drafted, or
the biggest problem in the NBA, it seems at the moment, is injuries.
Yep.
And the fatiguing. And it's everything people talk about, they're resting players too much. Is it because of the way that they're training them? Is it because it's 82 games?
Yeah.
Is it because you've got 82 games plus then you've got playoffs? So if you've got playoffs and you do...
Got 100 and something games come the end of the season.
Yeah. Oh, I've had 7 games.
That's nuts if you think you've gone that. Yeah.
I've got to add 28 games on.
Jeez.
Yeah. yeah, after doing that, and you might have done this, you might have done an exhibition or something beforehand, then you had some pre-season, you got 4 or 5 pre-season games, then something else. You know, that's why with the best intent, there's not many other sports or other things around the globe that can really moan when you've got these people doing those.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And where are they fatiguing? Where are they getting the injuries? They're not getting in their hands. All right, there's a few that are getting a couple of wrist ones recently, but most of them,
it's knees, hips,
ankles,
backs.
ACLs, just messed up stuff.
Yeah,
and it's not just because they're big people; it's because they're almost like hyper fatiguing.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they had a run of it, say in Orlando, for example, and I'm not saying rumor has it, but the way in which they were training, it seemed that they were very, very heavy in their training.
Right.
So then when it was coming to getting lots of players picking up injuries, and you go, well, that's interesting. You got 4 or 5 players off with the same injuries.
Yeah.
That's 4 different body types, 4 different people in 4 different positions, but you're all getting the same injuries.
Let's track it back and find what's
that's
the cause.
Clearly in your how much you're training or a certain regime or something.
Well, it's funny you mentioned like patterns in sport. This is, and again, going back to the rise in women's sport, women's football has become so much more popular in recent years. Women's ACL injuries in football have also skyrocketed.
Have they?
And this is another one where they're saying, is it because they're now doing more training, playing more games? One of the questions is,
that's really interesting,
is down to the boots. Now, women and men have different, not size feet, obviously.
Women have the hooves.
The actual ergonomics of their feet are different.
Is that the hole you're going to dig yourself there?
I'm definitely not.
They've got to get their claws in.
But a lot of women end up playing football in shoes that are designed as men's shoes. They're not designed for women's shaped feet.
Yep.
And that's one of the questions. Is it that the shoes don't fit their feet well enough to support their feet? So the foot then moves off at an angle that it shouldn't, which then results in the knee.
So I wonder if in female athletics, for example, because obviously with the running spikes, they've designed them a certain way.
They are designed for that individual's foot.
Exactly. Yep. That's where I'm going with it. Because when you see some of when you look at the sprinters, the differences between the ladies and the men's is really not that much.
No.
And there, I won't say no one's going to touch Bolt, but he was just almost a freak of nature in his own thing. But they did actually a program on him and how it's all to do with the power delivery and the way in which the speed at which and the power that he puts through his leg that goes through his foot,
the floor,
and the way in which he does that. And because he's very long, add those two together, it's not to do with his legs going at 1,000,000 miles an hour or anything. It's the way and the power in which he does that, and then transfer. That's why the shoes are so important. And that's why he had his own ones, etc., etc. So they had to design them to cope with the power that he's putting through.
The shoe's not going to break.
And once they did that, he went even faster because it's like, you can keep up with me now. It was literally like getting the right tires on the when they design cars to go 300 miles an hour, they have to design a tire for it. So that makes sense if women are picking up those sort of injuries.
Because it's just not the right shaped shoe for them.
Yeah, and also with a woman's body, the different type of athleticism and the different type of not just the weight, but the center of gravity and the way in which that would be landing if you're doing jumping.
Stuff.
All of that will have massive effects.
There's women have a higher Q angle. It's referred to as it's the angle which your hips travel down to your knees, and then your knees travel to the floor.
Okay.
Men, on average,
you're bringing the science here today. What's going on?
So there's pretty much men's legs go from hip pretty much in a straight line down to the floor. Women's tends to angle in
my legs aren't that straight, I'll be honest.
I don't think you've got the straightest legs in the world, Mark.
What?
But women tend to have more of an angle in towards their knees, and then the opposite from their knees back out to the floor. So it puts more internal force on the knee. Therefore, the shoes need to have a bit more structure compared to men, on average.
So would they then, in that sort of thing, if you're having impacts, you're going to get more knee impact?
It's the impact which then, when you've got twisting and turning involved, then becomes an issue. So I think that over the next few years you'll probably see a change in design when it comes to women's football boots. Strangely enough, this is something I've only ever seen recently. Women's actual basketball shoes. So the Sabrina
Yeah.
has suddenly become a huge shoe. I've seen men wearing the Sabrina basketball shoe, but it's
Ionescu. That's how.
yes, yeah.
I was about to say that's. I think how you say it last name.
That's it. So
Reasonable butchering.
it's unusual to see a women's basketball shoe. So when like you're scrolling through Basketball Direct or Sports Direct or whatever it is, and you see, get to the basketball section, and you will actually see a section that is women's shoes. It's not just women's colorways; they are women's basketball shoes.
Yeah.
They are a different shape and a different aspect ratio to a men's shoe, which I think is amazing. I think the same thing you're going to see in football boots in the next few years as well.
As long as they don't do those James Harden shoes anymore, I'm fine with it, because I don't know what they look like. They look like.
Is that the? I don't know. I forgot what they call
It looks like a Lego shoe.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Or actually, if someone, when you go to those people who make cakes that look like something and then they cut it open, it looks like a cake.
Is
that
it
you
cake?
These are, and they're meant to be comfy and stuff. You go, yeah, but they look rubbish.
Or to me, I think it's a strange one because I strangely like the shoe because it's ugly, but it looks like a child's drawing of a shoe.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Or a luxury yacht, just a really small one, like that. He takes it out and uses it in his bathtub, just to like play. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, the shoes aside, some of the shoes are a bit. They go around in circles these days, don't they? Unfortunately, they don't come out with anything fresh. So at least he's trying something different. I've got to respect that. But no, that's really interesting. If there's going to be more injuries, that'd be really interesting to see how that picks up.
I think because there have been more injuries, there'll be a change in footwear, in training, in conditioning to hopefully stop it being the case.
It's I think it's great when you see in these clips and people like not just Caitlin Clark but Sabrina and all of these players who are I want to say the goodies and the baddies. You can't miss out people like Angel. They're sharing like bits of their life and how they're training and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying insulting, but it's amazing how many people say, "Oh wow, look how wow they're doing this and doing that." It's like,
so what do you expect? They're
they're athletes. Yeah. Like these women are like, you're not doing one-on-one with them.
No,
they'll take most people to town.
Yep.
They're top of their field at what they do, and not just I'm top of my field at the women's game. No, they're they're up there in basketball.
If they turned up at the best rec games that you see on YouTube and stuff,
kill them.
Oh yeah, they'd cook most people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the way, not the technique, but it's the attitude that they have. It's like, oh look, they're running drills. Oh, they're doing this. It's like, yeah, they're professionals. If you see a gymnast and they're doing multiple tumbles, flipping over, doing something else, landing on their head, getting back up and doing it again, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's their gymnastics training. So why is it so different when they see a woman doing that in basketball? They go, oh, look at that. It's like, okay, is it just another sport? Like,
I think
it's like, I'm not saying educating, but people are coming.
But even to this day, I think a lot of people struggle to understand that women can really exert themselves.
Yeah,
and not just men.
No,
there's
and you said it earlier about them, the competitiveness in particular. Having competitiveness in a women's game often used to have a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'd be associated with, you're just trying to be masculine, or you're trying to do that. It's like, no, it's competitiveness.
Competition is competition.
Exactly. But having that line is very difficult to for women to tread in particular, because then people say, you're just trying to emulate this or do that. It's like, no, that's competition.
Yeah.
That's, I want to win because I want to win.
There was, I think it's changed now, but I remember back in school, in PE, there was a girl, I forget her name, who was an amazing athlete. She ran track and did gymnastics. But when it came to we'd have a competition day in PE, so we'd go up to Mountbatten Centre and we'd use the athletics track there.
Yeah.
I could see she was holding back. I could see she wasn't doing her best. She knew that she would beat all the other girls in most of the events, but it was almost like she didn't want to beat most of the boys as well, because she didn't want to be seen as being overly masculine or overly good at sport. She almost saw it as a negative, which at the time baffled me. I remember speaking to her about it at the time. I said, look, when we're doing the long jump, I could see that you were like literally restraining yourself to not jump as far as others. And she said, oh, no, I wasn't. And then I could tell that she was lying. So I watched another event, and like in the sprints, and she just slowed down like in the last 10 yards of the 100 meters, so that somebody else would finish, one of the other girls would finish just behind her. So she'd win, but she didn't want to win by too much. And it was peculiar. It was almost the opposite problem that we're seeing in some of the basketball games where teams are trying to win by too much. She was almost doing the opposite. She was trying to give the others a chance, and it was peculiar.
Well, it's great to see that. Again, if things like this happen, and you see the timing of all of this hype, and not just hype where it's like there's nothing behind it, but it's like, no, this really is
it's
not
worth watching.
I say good product, but it's worth watching, and it's enjoyable to watch, and it encourages more people to pick up a game, and it will encourage just as many men to play as it will women to play, and any kids watching it. Who will see that, and it's a different. It might be a different audience. It may be a same audience, but whoever it is, it's expanding the game of basketball around. It's just very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, my hope is that, I mean, having a daughter, that she doesn't just see basketball as something that she does on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
She sees it as, if I want to do it more seriously, I can. If I want to compete in a team, I can. She doesn't have to, but she's got the option to do it. And also, it's one of those things, also having a son, if my daughter starts getting good at something and she starts getting as good as him, he's going to go, I've got to put my socks up. I'm going to have to work harder.
100%.
So it works, is exactly what you're saying, but at a grassroots level, it can work for everyone.
Yeah. And then you look at the leagues, certainly back here in the UK, and you think, okay, they want to, pull out of Europe and doing that sort of stuff in the women's competition because they want to focus on growing homegrown talent. You go, I mean, that's great. Yeah. Totally welcome that. But
can you not do both?
Yeah, can't you do both?
Would staying in Europe and getting to the finals, historic in British basketball.
Yeah, first team to ever do that.
Not just getting to the finals, that in itself should help grassroots, because I mean, look at the women's football.
Yep.
The England team winning the Euros and getting to the finals of the World Cup has done nothing but increase girls' participation in football. So surely,
and you know what? I would say even sports.
Absolutely,
sports, because it's actually, do you know what? Go out and do something that you like doing, and you can have competition.
Yep.
You can enjoy it. You can win. You can lose. It teaches you some good stuff in life. And people will go, oh, well, I tried that football, I didn't like it, but actually when I was there, I noticed that they were playing softball over there, or someone else was doing, I don't know, whatever else. You
just start interacting with people that play sports, and that one of those people that you're speaking to will play something else that you enjoy or are good at or what have you.
Yeah, and a lot of those countries that do well with that often have things in place is either local governments or local bits that are sponsored and have big participation. And that's the links that we don't have in the UK.
Yeah, it's a
so
different
anyone
sound.
out who's in the Philippines or Japan and places who listen, the UK is very different, and it trickles down from the middle and spreads out from our government, and it doesn't. You're trying to do too many things with it's not just a too little budget. It's just you're trying to do too many things that are too fragmented.
The investment often has to come from the individual rather than the greater body, as it were.
Yeah, and like most things of any sports at the grassroots level, biggest investment's the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And putting all that in. So, yeah, it's nice seeing the women's game pick up as it has.
I hope the momentum continues.
Yeah, I hope it does, and it'll be interesting to see what the WNBA is going to be like next year. And some people are going to be going to that. Other people will be, I think, one more year in college, and that momentum is going to stay there. So I think it's a very interesting time for the NBA, for basketball, for the WNBA, because that hype train that has caused more people to look at basketball as a whole, and that's going to have an effect not just in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. I think,
but here in Europe, abroad, everywhere.
It should. Hopefully, it'll create waves, not just in the women's side of sports, but in men's as well.
Just as long as they measure the 3-point lines correctly. That's all we can wish for. Well, that's all I got for this week. That's pretty much everything.
Covered it all.
Covered it. We have covered the world and back. Now you can go back, and it's raining out there actually, Eliott. So now you don't have to worry about your shower because you can just
sorted.
Just walk home and you
lather up in the rain.
Okay, it's a family show, so yeah, maybe don't do that. But but Eliott, thank you so much for joining us this week, and you know, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
No doubt we'll have you back on in the future. If you haven't listened to our episodes with Eliott and lots of other ones, go back and listen. We've got about 88, 89 at the moment, and they're all pretty good. If you've got any questions, drop us a line, ukbasketballpodcast@gmail.com. I've been Mark.
And I've been Eliott.